Okay, um, I can say greetings to you, my viewer. Thank you for sharing and resubscribing and extending this channel to those who may be having a great need in it. Yeah. So I'm Jeng Akram. I'm the current CEO, Tijara Group of Companies. We do real estate solutions, we do construction, we do architecture designs, planning, surveying works. In our engineering arm combines metal works of doors, electrical installations, plumbing works, among other solutions. Now, I'm sorry, we also have the education solutions and capital development. That's why you are seeing me right now here. Um, um, I'm using this platform to do both online learning and giving back to my community and both exposing my expertise in economics to do community development through real estate, through construction, and doing all management skills to supervise and manage projects both in real estate, agriculture, and among other solutions. Yeah, that was um, yeah, it was like an idea that I intended to pass through. Okay. Today I'm going to discuss consumption. Consumption. You always see like this topic in macroeconomics mostly. Um, you cannot study macroeconomics and you don't look at consumption. Why? Because macroeconomics looks at aggregate demand. And aggregate demand, um, when you are looking at aggregate demand, that means consumption has to come somewhere. So at any level, be it undergraduate, be it masters, you can't leave macroeconomics without looking at consumption. So this video is going to be helpful for both undergraduate students and master's students. Again, I appreciate you for already subscribing and commenting. In case you find this video helpful, please share it to a friend, share it to a family member. I know there are many people who are in different universities in Uganda, in Africa, and other universities who may find this video helpful. Okay, what is consumption? Or what is consumption theory? Because consumption may be broad. Because when you talk about consumption from a layman's understanding, it may seem something like very easy to, because if you talk about consuming, it means eating, consume, yes, consuming food, consuming what. So it's something like, in a layman's understanding, consumption, it means you are consuming, you are eating, you are getting something, eating. It's from a layman's understanding. But consumption tries to define or to determine the patterns of how individuals use their incomes to consume for a given lifetime or for a given period. For simplicity, consumption is defined as, or consumption theory is defined as determining patterns of how individuals determine their levels of consumption over their lifetime. I don't know if that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, you can as well um, comment with a beautiful definition. Anyway, there are different theories that explain consumption. As I have said, that it generalizes or determines the extent to which individuals determine their levels of consumption over a lifetime. Now, since we are finding fluctuations and all that in incomes, there must be proper allocation of incomes in both periods such that consumption in the future has no impact for today's consumption. So, in a nutshell, we are looking at how can an individual optimally allocate his income such that consumption in the future is not affected by today's consumption. Now, there are many theories that explain consumption theory, but for the case of undergraduate, you will only look at the permanent income hypothesis and the life cycle hypothesis. That's for macroeconomics. And maybe for intermediate microeconomics, you may look at the Irving-Fisher theory of the intertemporal theory of consumption. Now, when you upgrade for masters, you observe that there are other economists who talk about consumption, because as I have told you earlier, consumption is the main component of the gross domestic product. You can't talk about macroeconomics and you leave about consumption, because macroeconomics talks about aggregate demand, and aggregate demand is a function of the planned expenditure. So the planned expenditure composes consumption. So consumption becomes a great component in explaining macroeconomics. Now, let us start by listing the number of theories that explains consumption theory. The first economist that was good at explaining consumption, though his work failed at the empirical findings because he had used short-time series data. That is the great economist called Keynes, John Keynes. Now, John Keynes said that as the incomes of individuals increase by $1, consumption will always be between 0 and 1, and that is the marginal propensity to consume. That implies that as incomes increase for households, they are not consuming all their incomes and they are not saving all their incomes. That means a proportion of their incomes is being consumed and then the other proportion is being saved. That is the ratio, that is the closed boundary between 0 and 1. And then he also observed and said that the ratio of consumption to saving, that is called the average propensity to consume, decreases for those people who are rich. That implies, according to him, that rich people do not consume more of their incomes, rather they save more. And then he said that income is the main determinant for consumption. We shall criticize John Keynes in other models because he said that income determines consumption 100%. That implies that other factors constant, income is the major factor determinant of consumption. He neglected things like interest rates, like consumers' confidence, and all that. Now, those were the conjectures or the guesses of John Keynes in determining consumption theory. Now, he went on to obtain data using short time series data. And the empirical findings were, when data was collected on different households, it was found out that rich people consume more and save more. And then the average propensity to consume was the average propensity to consume was lesser or decreases for people with higher incomes, like the way he had observed in his findings. And then during World War, Keynes observed that incomes were low, savings were low, and as well consumption was also low. So he made a final conclusion that income is the major factor determinant of consumption. Again, as you are watching, we do buy and sell land, and our offices are in Sanji, Manja. It's just 1.5 kilometers from Sanji stage. We have plots at a relatively cheaper price. You may be a student and you have not started working, but your mother, a father, a friend, and by the time you reach your age of working, you may have interest in buying. Please trust Jara Real Estate Solutions. So as you are learning, learn to invest, because these models we are learning, the intuition behind them, they are just teaching us how to save, how to plan for the future, how to plan for the today, how to keep or to be conscious with borrowing and all that. Now, that was the Keynesian theory, or the Keynesian consumption theory. Now, Simon Kuznot observed that John Keynes had used short time series data. And when Simon Kuznot taken long-run time series data, he observed that average propensity to consume was constant in the long run. So he observed that Keynes was right, though he used the wrong data. So he used the short time series data to determine consumption and income. There are other theories that explain consumption theory, like the way I had told you. The other theory is the permanent income hypothesis by an economist called Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman observed that individuals experiences fluctuations in their incomes for a lifetime, and observed that the incomes of the individuals are composed of two components. One, the transitory component, and then the transitory component, and then the permanent income. The transitory income and then the permanent income. The transitory income is the short or the current income that is used to smoothen consumption. Individuals use the transitory income to smoothen their consumption when their incomes increases, they save it, and when it decreases, they borrow. So the transitory income is used to smoothen the individual's consumption. So the individuals tend to save the transitory income and spend the permanent income. So the permanent income, it is the long run income that persists into the future. So according to Friedemann, Keynesian theory was okay, but John used the wrong income. So according to Friedemann, it is the permanent income that determines the consumption patterns of the individual or the household. Okay. So how do Milton and John differ? They differ in the way that the other guy, the Friedemann, says that it is the long run permanent income that determines the consumption of the household. So Keynes would be right if he had used the permanent income as observed by Milton Friedemann. Now,